I says, why can't we watering this stuff by hand? We watering this stuff by hand. Why not with some PVC pipe in here? And I says, is there a way to put connections on this right here? He says, yeah. He says, you can get quick disconnects. So we go down there and we build one of these right here, and the crop was already in. So we drilled a hole for each plant. See their stir step, a 1/8 inch hole. We put that quick disconnect on it, and it worked perfect. It comes right out of there. It comes right out of there just like a little waterfall.
So that works better for you than an ordinary drip tube system.
What is cheaper? A whole lot cheaper. It works better because on the moisture here, checking this moisture, you don't water it regularly. You stick your finger in the ground 2 inches deep. If you do not feel moisture in 2 inches, it needs watering. Okay. And so you can't have a regular watering schedule. All right, now this is how the plant gets watered. Now, as you see, I haven't got a hole cut there for that plant, but it would take me about a minute with a 1/8 drill to cut a hole for that, which I will do.
And that's what you do then?
Now, you see, one on this side here shooting high, and this one here shooting low. Yeah. Well, all I got to do is reach in here and do this right here, equalize it out.
So you drill them level when you drill them originally? I
drill them down on about a 45, and where they kind of, they go kind of up and then down. I can water 2 rows like this if too many people not watering the yard. The water pressure dropped out here during the day. So if I can water real early in the morning and beat them to it, I can water 2 rows at one time. Or I can took another hose and took my front hydrant and bring 2 hoses back here and make it faster. It takes about 20 minutes for that to run out of the bottom when it's dry.
So you control the water pressure so that the the little arc of water hits right.
Right, I can control the flows right here.
With the switch there.
Yep.
And then once the water's arcing out and hitting right about the center of the opening where the tomato is in the black plastic, you let that run for 20 minutes?
I say, no, it runs out the bottom of the board. But it averages out about 20 minutes to do that. When it's dry. When I stick my finger in there and for 2 inches, if it's not wet, I'll start watering immediately.
That's a really great system. It keeps the roots down wet and doesn't get the foliage wet or waste time.
You got it. You don't want that foliage to get wet at all.
Now, how often do you end up watering?
Every day I stick my finger down in the ground. If it's wet, it's 2 inches deep, I don't water. I'll come back that evening. If it's wet, I don't water. The next day, if it's dry, I'll water. There's no regular schedule of watering. You've got to figure out what your plan is. It's just like humans. We drink water lots of times we don't. So it's the same thing.
Very much hands-on. Test it with your actual
You've got to put your hands on it. You've got to put your hands. It's just like raising children. You've got to stay with it. If you don't, you'll have nothing. And that's been my motto for a long time. About 12 years ago, I started this raised bed gardening, and a friend of mine, his name was Joe Spahn. We were trying to find different varieties of tomatoes that work better, and finally we decided on Carnival. It's been Celebrity was our favorite, and Carnival came out, and that's a sister to each other.
Did you go through a lot of different varieties before you
Oh yes, we've tried them all, and I'll still try them, 1, 2 of them. But as you can see, these plants right here are just loading up the blooms. They're loaded up from the bottom all the way up to the top. You got the clusters are not as well as I think they are, but when they get bigger, it'll pull this vine down close to the ground, but it won't hurt it. These vines here will go out the top.
They'll go right up the top?
They'll go right on out the top.
Oh, so eventually you'll take this plastic off?
The reason I'm leaving this plastic on now is because we live in Texas. It could come a hailstorm tonight. This will take care of a 1-inch hailstone. It hit that like a bass drum and bounce off. Now, last year I had 1 inch to go through one of them, but it did all right.
Now, John, these tomato bushes are almost shoulder high on me, and it's only the 5th of May. When did you plant these?
Nothing is going to have a baby.
February the 11th, I believe. I got it wrote on the front there, so I put them in. Got my wife's bathroom heater, a little electric heater, and I hooked it up on the end down there and covered it up. And I borrowed 2 more and put them on the other 2 units. Well, one day it was 95 degrees, the next day it was 22. All right, I had the heaters going. I couldn't run all wide open. I had to run 3 of them half speed because it was blowing my circuit in there, you see. So I lost, out of 3 units, I lost that last snorer because on the north side.
Yeah.
I lost 14 plants, and I think out of 55, that's pretty doggone good.
Considering the temperature variation, and that's just with this structure that you made yourself.
The structure and plastic. The plastic was covered completely enclosed.
Now tell me a little bit more about the plastic. Do you just buy that at, where do you get that, and how do you choose the variety?
You buy plastic, the clear plastic. You buy 3 mil because if you get beyond 3 mil, it's too cloudy. Also, yeah, something else I want to tell you about. Joe and I talking about improvements. We left, this garden is, walkways are 2 foot wide. They was left because our lawnmowers could get through there and cut the grass. All right.
So originally this was a grass path.
This was a grass path with weeds because he's getting watered every day, so we had to mow it there. So he said, let's get some roofing paper and put down there. We put roofing paper down there. It kept us out of the mud. It kept the grass out. And so that was another good idea that we worked out from year to year. We kept working things out.
Well, that makes sense. If when you water it, the water comes out.
The water comes out here.
It get kind of wet.
Yes, it does.
Normally, how many plants do you put in each bed?
That's a good question. This is a short bed right here because I got my blackberry plant on the end of it. This holds 14.
14.
They've got 8 on each side over here, stair 8 and 8. That's 16 plants to a unit, and they're stair-stepped or dominoed, if you want to call it.
So in a regular 24-foot by 4.5-foot bed, you get 16 plants.
Right, plus they're 3 foot apart.
So how many tomatoes do you end up with? How many pounds of tomatoes do you end up with your system?
Well, year before last was my best year. And I believe when I pick them, I stand on my scales with the bags in my hand and I write it down and subtract it from my weight. That's how I weigh them. But I'd tell you 1350 was what I raised. That was my best year. Last year was 1,200.
1,200, and that's out of these 3 beds or all 5 together?
That's out of 3 units. 3 units is like we have now. Now, I'd always plant 3 units and 2 units of bell peppers.
Well, I guess that's adequate to keep your hamburgers covered all summer.
And everybody else's.
You've got a couple things here that are not directly connected in my experience with tomato growing, like the whirligigs and the little birds, this, that, and the other, and the art. What are some of your special tips that we haven't covered yet? Are the whirligigs part of that?
The whirligigs is part of it. The whirligigs, as they get older, they make a lot of noise. And birds do not like a noise they don't know. And so do squirrels. Last year I had 3 squirrel bites, I believe, and about 7 bird picks. That's a pretty good record.
Out of the whole tomato crop, you lost a couple that way?
Yeah, not very many.
All right. Well, are there any other tips you can share with us?
You know, have you ever heard of that tobacco worm? He's about that long. He's got a hook tail on him. He can eat a half a plant a day. He's got appetite. So you got to look for signs like that. And when you find him, oh, I just cut half in 2 like this. But normally what I do is all these plants are touching the ground, all of them, and they're growing. You cannot see the base of it. So what I do, I go in there and I'll find. You got to be careful what you cut because you might cut a tomato out of one with tomato on. Now I cut it off at the stalk. Cut it off at the stalk, and I throw this in the garbage bag. Because you do not want this in your compost.
You don't?
You do not. You think, wow, but you might have a disease in it. And if there's a disease in it, it'll carry over in my compost when I put it in next year. So you got to think about that. And when it comes fall, when I pull all these up, I bundle them up, put them out of the ground, root and all, and put them on the parkway and let the brush haulers get them.
What do you achieve by keeping that growth clipped out under the bottom there?
It's a one-time deal. It's after these plants have been planted and they get this high, the high it is now, and I cut this out last week. Oh, you down, see this hanging down right here. Well, it's all right, but they're hanging down from here. See, I've cut all this out, and they're touching the ground all the way around, and you cannot even see your stalk. That gives the insects a dinner. They run and they can go up the plants. It helps them out. Plus the leaves gets dirty, and then they'll get damp. And the main thing is to cut you out from early blight. Early blight will kill you. Early blight is when you get too much more. Say if I got a blowing rain and I had all that to fall in there and hit that, and it stayed wet 2 or 3 days, they would start turning yellow, and then they'd turn brown. And then it would start creeping all the way up. And the only thing you can do is operate.
So cleaning it out like that, letting the air in and taking away the bug ladder, that gives you a lot better health just by the mechanical.
It's something that you should be done.
All right. And you just have to do that one time?
One time.
All right.
And just be careful when you're reaching up, like when you're cutting the next stalk, or you might get a limb with a tomato on the other end of it.
What do you do then?
Just say a bad word and say, and say, well, next time I'll do better. So that's how you do that.
Well, John, it looks like you turned a little friendly competition into a magnificent miracle of tomato production, and I thank you for showing it to us.
Well, it's nice telling you about it, and this is a joy to even talk about it, and it is something I really enjoy.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Glad you came.
John Wall has reached towards his gardening goals with wonderful personal ingenuity and hands-on attention to detail, giving support to the old saying that the best fertilizer is the gardener's shadow. He expects this to be his best year ever, and here at the New Garden, we believe him. I'm Liz Druitt. We'll see you next week. For your own videocassette copy of today's program, number 812, Tons of Tomatoes, call 1-800-555-3484. Each videocassette is $24.95, including postage. Visa and MasterCard are accepted. Checks and money orders can be mailed to the address on the screen. Also, discover the exciting world of organic gardening in the pages of the New Garden Journal. This bi-monthly companion to the television series expands on the topics and techniques seen here on TV. The journal is just $20.50 per year. For videos and the New Garden Journal, call 1-800-555-3484 or send a check or money order to the address on the screen.